Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, led a coalition of Republicans down to the border to talk to the Border Patrol, to investigate how disastrous things are there, and to push the fact that Joe Biden's agenda does not get funded. We're coming up against a funding crisis in about a week and a half. We might face a so-called government shutdown. And Mike Johnson is holding the line saying, you fix the border problem. And this isn't a money issue. This is an enforcement of existing laws issue. You do that, and then we'll start talking about funding the government for the rest of this fiscal year. He appeared with Jake Tapper on CNN, and Jake Tapper did what Jake Tapper always does. He towed the line for the Democrats. He towed the line for Joe Biden because he's a creature of the District of Columbia. And he started arguing with Mike. Imagine if Jake Tapper had this kind of energy and this kind of interest in debating an issue, not interviewing, but debating an issue with Nancy Pelosi or with Chuck Schumer or with Joe Biden. Watch.
You're the ones in charge of asylum. And yes, President Trump or President Biden could do X, Y, or Z, but it's really up to Congress.
When President Trump entered the Oval Office, he put in the Remain in Mexico policy. He ended the catch and release policy. He did the fundamental common sense things that stem the flow. It was down to a tiny fraction of what it is right now. Jake, 302,000 encounters at the border in December alone. It's the highest.
What the speaker just said there is critically important, and I want to make sure you all get it. No law was changed when Donald Trump came into office, and he put policies in place under the existing law and building coalitions and relationships with our partners in Mexico, Venezuela, Guatemala, what have you, to stop the flow. Now, to stem the flow, I should say. Of course, it didn't stop 100%, as you're about to see from Jake Tapper, but we didn't see 250,000 people a month crossing the border. It got brought down to a trickle because, number one, the message was sent, you come here illegally, you're not going to get carte blanche. And number two, you claim asylum, you got to remain in Mexico. You don't make it into America. That stopped human trafficking. It stopped the coyotes from charging $10,000 a shot to get people into the country. He built a wall to keep people from coming in illegally in most of the places where they were crossing in illegally without passing a law. See, Tapper set this entire thing up by saying, you're Congress, you have to pass a law about asylum. No, actually they don't. The only difference between the Trump presidency and the 3 years of the Biden presidency is the president. No law has changed. And what Johnson just said there is incredibly important. This false narrative that this only gets fixed if we have comprehensive immigration reform through legislation and a coalition partnership of Republicans and Democrats, pardon me for saying so, bullshit. That is, in fact, bullshit. The Democrats will tell you that, and the media will tell you that because they want to twist the arms of Republicans to get asylum. And the last time they did that was in the late 80s. They twisted Ronald Reagan's arm. They finally got their way. The Democrats promised, oh, give us asylum and then we'll secure the border. Yeah, how's that working out? And we will not be fooled again. That's not going to happen. The laws are in place right now. Lock it down and enforce the law as written. That's what Trump did, and it's what Biden refuses to do. Okay, I'll let Johnson finish here.
Highest number in history, and it's going to continue because they're showing no inclination at all to change it. They have rolled out the welcome mat. By the way, this is costing American taxpayers billions and billions of dollars to house and feed and educate and give health care to all these illegals. If you're from one of these poor countries, why would you not make the journey? Why would you not submit your children to that dangerous journey? We don't know what's happening to them on the way. Yeah. This is a humanitarian crisis. We walk through the centers today, Jake. It would make the average American citizen cry to see what's happening here, and it must stop.
Right, which is why some people are saying, why not pass the $14 billion supplemental bill that...
By the way, some people are saying that. Joe Biden is saying that. He is literally parroting exactly what Joe Biden said Tuesday night when he returned from St. Croix with the lobster sunburn that he got because he fell asleep outside, or maybe he had some work done. People go to these countries sometimes to get plastic surgery. Set that aside for a minute. He was asked about the border, and he said, yeah, that's why they got to give me the money I'm asking for. So when Jake Tapper says, that's why some people are asking for $14 billion, the some people is the Biden White House. and there's Jake Tapper following his marching orders. Why don't you give Joe Biden what he wants? That money is not going to secure the border, as Speaker Johnson points out right now.
That President Biden has put before you to at least try to help with some of these issues.
That won't solve. That
No,
won't
it's not-
solve
it's
any
not
of the
sol-
problems
no.
I just articulated.
Right,
That
no,
won't
no.
do a darn thing.
Well,
No.
I'm sure the people in the Border Patrol agents that you're with think it might do something, at least in terms of making their job a little easier for the next month or so.
No, actually they don't.
They don't want the $14 billion?
No. I just quoted to you the deputy chief of the U.S. Border Patrol, and he said he doesn't need more buckets. In other words, he doesn't need more personnel to handle the flow. He needs to turn the flow off. That's what we're talking about. This is not about sending more money down here. It's about changing the policy, and the White House seems not to understand that.
Yeah, but I mean, even President Trump couldn't turn the faucet off, right? I mean, I understand your point that he did more than Biden did.
He
but
turned the flow down.
Yeah, but it's not. It's the presidency. It's not a magician. But let me just ask you.
It's a presidency. It's not a magician. That is the most disingenuous line of questioning from Jake Tapper. And I'll prove to you in a moment with the next clip to show you how disingenuous he is and how he's doing the bidding of the Democrats in arguing with Mike Johnson. And God bless Mike Johnson. Let me just be clear on who Speaker Mike Johnson is. I interviewed him a year before he became Speaker. And he told me in that interview that as far as he's concerned, what Biden has done on the border is an impeachable offense. He was ready to impeach Joe Biden a year ago over the border. Forget about Hunter Biden. Forget about all the other reasons you could impeach Joe Biden. He's ready to impeach over the border. He gets it. And he is not having any of it from Tapper. And he's handling him very well, too, by the way. He doesn't sound defensive. He's incredibly confident. He knows the facts. He knows what he's doing. Super impressive guy. And he's right. You ask any person and leader, not an elected, not Mayorkas, not some political appointee. You actually ask the people in the Border Patrol, what do you need right now? They don't need more money. They don't need more people. What they need is to be able to do their job. They didn't sign up to be a member of the Border Patrol and be a member of federal law enforcement on the border so they could just sit there and change children's diapers and fill out forms letting people stay in the country illegally and come back for an asylum hearing 8 years from now. They joined federal law enforcement to protect the border so they could protect the border. And what they're asking is to actually do their job. So now watch this one, because this is a beautiful thing. Again, Speaker Mike Johnson with Jake Tapper talking now about not just the flow across the border, but about who's coming across. And, there's a reason why Border Patrol and border security has been put under the umbrella of Homeland Security, right? This is the Department of Homeland Security, because our border is a national security issue. Millions and millions and millions of unvetted, undocumented people pouring into our border is kind of a national security issue. Does anyone here remember September 11th? And we know for a fact that there have been untold numbers of people who have crossed the border who are on the terror watch list. And so this comes up in the interview. Watch Tapper and watch Johnson.
Jake, 7 million people have come into the country since Biden walked into the Oval Office. And that's a low estimate. Most people believe it may be twice that high. We have nearly 2 million gotaways that we know about, not to mention those who evaded capture. Over 300 known terrorists apprehended at the border trying to come in. We don't know how many evaded capture and detection. They're in the country, potentially setting up terrorist cells everywhere. Fentanyl is the #1 cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 49, flowing over the border like an open sewer. Human trafficking is the #1 business of the cartels here. Estimated, we were told today, Jake, one of the local sheriffs here said that they believe that the cartels are making $32 million a week on trafficking human beings into the U.S. That's over $1.5 billion a year. Transnational criminal organizations, and the Biden administration seems to care nothing about it. Remember, they could issue executive orders and fix this overnight. You could reinstate the Remain in Mexico policy. You could stop the catch and release policy that the Biden administration insists upon. You could do some very important things, but they refuse to do it.
So just one note on the terrorist thing.
Wait, well, hold on, because he has no response to that. I just want you to understand what just happened here. Mike Johnson just detailed the problem and then said what could be done right now without one piece of legislation, without $1 spent. They can reinstate their remain in Mexico. They can stop, catch, and release. They can embolden the Border Patrol to actually enforce the border. They could do all of these things. That's what Trump did. They could say that if you claim asylum, you have to claim it in your home country and not come here to America to do so. They could do all of those things. And Tapper just says, well, let me just say this about the terror watch list. So he has no response, which is telling. But now listen to the point he makes about the terror watch list. This is beautiful.
Aren't hundreds of known terrorists getting into the country. There are people whose identity have been flagged on a certain database. I just don't want people out there thinking that they're, 200 members of Hamas have flown into the country and we don't even know about it. It's a little bit more complicated. I'm not saying that it's not serious. I'm just saying these aren't necessarily terrorists.
That's the terrorist watch list, Jake.
Right.
It takes quite a bit to make that list. Okay, these are dangerous people who are coming into the country.
Is that not perfect? Speaker Johnson says, yeah, we got hundreds of people who have crossed the border that we know are on the terror watch list. And Jake Tapper needs to run interference for Hamas? Well, I just don't want people to think that terrorists are coming in here. It's not like these are terrorists who are coming in. They're just on a database on a terror watch list. And Johnson's like, well, it takes quite a bit to be on the terror watch list, Jake. This is what they're reduced to. They're literally, and he kept saying, I'm not saying it's not serious. No, actually, Jake Tapper, that's exactly what you're saying. That's all they've got. It's not that bad. It's not really as bad as they're saying. No, actually, it's worse. It's worse. And good on you, Speaker Johnson.